Is it recording?
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Hi.
Hello, hi.
My name is Mr. Oyer.
Hello, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
And,
I
my
am
name
Mr.
is
Fleming.
Kevin Umlof. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
From Riverside. Sorry.
Okay.
and you are, sorry?
Fleming too?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us. Oh, let me start the timer. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us. I think it's really important that we try to address the situation as promptly as possible, and if we can reach a solution where we avoid going to court, I think that's ideal for everybody.
Yep.
Yes.
Just to sort of give you a little precedence in terms of where we stand as a company, there's been some economic issues over the last several months in the lumber industry, and that's affected our revenues quite significantly and our cash flows quite significantly. And this is privileged information I'm giving you. It hasn't been released in our statements yet, but the reality is that we think that this is a temporary shock from the economy, and in the long term, the lumber industry stands to profit quite a bit. So this is a short-term situation that we need to sort of weather the storm until this is over. And because of the sort of the hit that's taken on our cash flow, it's put us, any sort of added or excessive expense is going to put us at risk of bankruptcy. And that's a concern for our company. It's a concern for the community that we work in. As you know, that the community here, there's only one industry, and we basically we employ the majority of people in this community. So having to pull out of it is going to be a significant shock on the people here. It's going to affect the local economy, and it may even put them into a recession because there's no other industries in this area. The unemployment rate is already high in this community, so it's going to compound the issue, and then us leaving is going to turn into a large-scale political issue as well. The reality is, though, as our company is a small subsidiary of a large multinational conglomerate. And as much as it's in my best interest to make sure that our operations keep going and that we're profitable, at some point we have to report to a larger multinational subsidiary. And if they decide that they need to cut off the arm to save the body, and that's a decision that they're willing to make, then that's a decision that we have to live by. It's not one that we want to go for, but we understand that we may have to go out of business in order to survive the larger multinational conglomerate to survive. And by us doing that, it's not going to be us going down quietly. It's going to be us going down, making a statement, trying to benefit our larger industry. So it's going to be us going after the DEC, proving that excessive regulations, unfounded regulations, excessive financial stress on us, have led to high unemployment rates in the community, and we will do this aggressively because we think that, first off, we believe that this is the fact, that that the regulations are putting a heavy stress on businesses and driving them out of business, and as a whole, I think we stand to benefit from making sure that the DEC is working closely with corporations. The next thing I sort of want to talk about is that the technology that's being proposed has not been proven. So the new refinery system, there's no evidence to suggest that it works in wood, in wood mills, right? The evidence comes from other areas, and there's a chance of it failing. The other thing is that it's difficult to establish causality between our mill's output and the environmental impact or the bladder disease. It's extremely difficult to establish as causality with any sort of credibility. Having a background in epidemiology, I understand that there's a lot of confounding variables. There's a lot of polluters in that water. Almost all of what we dispose in there is organic material, and I actually think it benefits the environment. And if we decide, sorry?
Do you have proof for that?
You don't have proof on the contrary, right? So it's our word against yours, and it's not, again, we don't want to get into that situation where we're arguing over things. We want to find...
Okay. But my point is, what we are trying to do is, yes, it is possible. It's clean, but you're trying to make sure it's I would consider this as more as a risk management perspective. So we get rid of the whole thing, we will be safe.
No, I agree with that. I understand. I'm just letting you know that there's no causality established.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's going to be extremely difficult to establish causality, and we can argue on that for hours, but there's no evidence in either direction.
Okay, go ahead.
And by us installing a water scrubber, we are admitting, it's in a sense, it's an admission of guilt. It's us saying that we've done something wrong to the environment, and now we're spending a lot of money to try to mitigate lawsuits. And if anything, that might invite more lawsuits.
Yeah.
So that being said, we want to work with you. We want to protect the environment. As you can see, we've both gone paperless. No, but we have the environment at our, it's one of our
biggest
core
concerns,
values,
yeah.
and we do want to protect it. I'm just emphasizing that we're taking a gamble on something that we're not even sure is going to protect the environment and is putting our company at risk. So with that, there's two main issues that I want to discuss, and one of them is compliance, the other one is liability. With regards to compliance, I want to know how you're going to be able to help us in terms of mitigating some of the costs of this water scrubber, in terms of providing us any sort of incentive for complying with your environmental regulations. And then on the liability side, we are admitting, by installing this water scrubber, we are taking on admission of guilt. And so how will you help us work around that in terms of, assisting us with any potential liability that may come up, or helping us establish a good public relations rapport? As you know, like our cash flows are tight, and for us to continue operation, we do need your assistance. At the same time, I think it's an opportunity because my understanding that this new technology has never been used in mills, right? So we can work together to pilot this project and sort of set a mark for the rest of the industry. And ideally, that's where I'm hoping this negotiation will take us.
Okay, so that's good to know. The one thing that we wanted to set it out there and put it out there as soon as possible is at this moment it does not really matter whether whatever wastage that's going into the water, whether that's that's hazardous or that's not. The fact is that something is going into the lake, so that's something against regulations, so that absolutely needs to be stopped. So as I understand that you are willing to look at the technology aspect of it, and you're trying to understand how it is that we could help you. We understand that you're going through some problems, but we would want to know, you mentioned that there are some financial difficulties going on. Could you give some more information about that, please?
Well, the company has been, I'm not sure if you want to take this one or not.
Yeah, I can take this one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure he knows the financial situation that we're currently having. Actually, by opening, we're losing money in itself. And if we install the water scrubber itself, it's going to hurt our profitability even more. So we even thought about closing the plant for a couple of months if we are really required to install the water scrubber. And well, the water scrubber, there's two of them, right? So we're thinking more on applying the Rotoblue. And again, by applying this technology, it's also an admission of guilt from our side that we've polluted the environment, and we believe we're gonna get a lawsuit costing us up to 550K, but that's only because we have an insurance to cover up to that amount deductible. So in that sense, we're looking for about 1 million.
Possibly, in terms of
Maybe more.
lawsuits,
Yeah.
the ceiling, there's no ceiling, right?
Yeah.
For us, with our liability insurance will be covered. Our ceiling is 550,000, but the reality is this can be settled for whatever amount is there. Our insurance will cover it, but it tarnishes our image.
This still hasn't even taken into account the revamping of our public image that we need to do.
Exactly.
Well, I
And
have
the cost related to that if we install the water scrubber.
Yeah, but my point is we have two different water scrubbers, right? So we have the Rotoblue and the Techno Clean. If you're actually doing Techno Clean, it's not admitting of guilt, because it's a new technology. We can put in images saying we are trying to do stuff. We're trying to do a different testing for that. So if you prove this is to be really effective for us, then what we can do is yes, this is great for mutual parties to do so. Although I know probably it's very expensive from your side, but I think in that particular sense you protect your public image because you're helping us to testing out this new technology. At the same time, I think it's also good for us because we will try.
Still, not necessarily, right? Because at this point, we believe that we don't need to really install anything, and it's just because we're working with DC, right?
Yeah.
That we want to install.
Have a good relationship with the DC moving forward.
As I mentioned, I think having no scrubber right away. That's something that's not really an option for us at all, because that goes beyond our regulations.
Right.
So, I mean, it's better for us to start discussing options as to what is it that we can find a good solution towards. And you mentioned about financial difficulties, so we would also want to understand, like, you know, how much is your parent company willing to help you out here? What support do you have from them?
So they'll let us crash and burn if we need to, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're losing money, so we're a liability to them if we can't fix the current situation. I mean, that's the reality of the
And
situation. Right?
yeah, I mean, like I think it's also important to lay out the fact that if we can't reach an agreement right now, potentially we're gonna go to court, right? And we probably have like a 50% chance of like win or losing from each end.
Right.
For us, if it's like if we lose, then we just they're just gonna cut us off and
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Go on
you
bankrupt
don't
for
have any
this.
support from your parent company, is what you mean?
No.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So, with respect to the technologies that you're looking at, what are sort of your motivations or objectives for choosing one technology, or like what sort of goes in your mind while you're making these decisions and looking into the types of scrubbers?
So if there's an opportunity to remove 99.8% of the debris that's coming from our mills, we're happy to do that, because we, like I said, we support environmental initiatives. Both of us ourselves are environmental activists, and we want to make sure that the company portrays that as well.
just that the budget constraint is
Exactly.
pretty
So
tough.
what's the budget constraint?
Well, I would say like on our end we're ready to pay like 250K for the blue, for the Roto Blue.
And I mean, that's going to put us in some financial difficulty as well, but we want to comply with the DC, and that's sort of the minimum requirement to comply. The other thing is that if we go with a more expensive model, there's no guarantee that it works. There's a 20%
exactly.
rate of failure, and then we're stuck buying another one. So we've experimented with something, it failed, and now we're stuck footing the bill for the other.
I see. So-
How about if we guarantee if it doesn't work, we
Right.
reimburse you?
That's
For
fine.
the replacement.
Yeah, if you're going with the new
Right.
technology.
So I mean, we definitely appreciate that. I think it
Yeah.
gives us some sort of security.
But it's still an extra like 200K.
Exactly, it doesn't make up for the difference, the cost difference of 200,000.
So, like, what is it that you think is going to be a better deal for you that way? Like, if not this.
So, I guess our option would be to, if you were able to subsidize this new experimental technology, given that we are the first mill to implement it, and I think that's a pretty good justification to subsidize for, you know, the first one or two people who are going to sort of adopt this technology, and make the cost comparable to that of the blue, the other one, the Roto Blue, which is about 250,000.
Yeah, the problem with that is that if we do it for you, we'll have to do it for all. So, like, looking into subsidies is not something that would be ideal for us.
Right now,
So-
we don't subsidize the Roto Blue, though, right? Because it's a proven technology.
Yeah.
So we're asking for a subsidy because we want to experiment with you with something that's,
No,
you know,
that's
it's experimental.
No, I completely understand that. The only thing is that if we are subsidizing for you, the next company that goes ahead and puts TechnoClean, we'll have to subsidize it for them too. So the costs associated with us are like exponentially high.
Okay.
So since your objective is for us to install the water scrubber, right? So it should be fine if we install Roto Blue then, right?
I mean that we would essentially like like you to install TechnoClean. So that is sort of the things that we are trying to
Yeah,
look
but-
into, because it's more cost effective, and as you mentioned, like you were worried about
It's not more cost effective for
No.
a company to use.
Yeah,
the
it's
cost
not more
effective. I meant
cost-effective.
more in terms of the efficiency of its testing.
Right.
So like I mean, if
I get on the
Because-
assumption that our output is actually damaging the water.
Well,
right?
because-
it's an unproven. Our goal is to comply with you,
Yeah.
not because I have evidence to suggest that what we're doing is damaging.
Yeah.
And our evidence, our incentive is to work with you so that we can both promote an environmentally healthy.
Yeah.
But our primary goal is to make sure our company survives.
yeah, no, that's definitely there. So like you,
And even our options, the options that we considering by like applying Roto Blue is under the clause that you guys also help us to mitigate with the liability loss of the lawsuits that's coming to hit us if we install the water scrubber. I mean, just to make that clear though.
So,
I mean-
what would you be? What are you able to offer in terms of incentives for the?
We can.
We asked
Because
you what we want.
we
and
can
it
do
seems like
guarantee.
that's not
And
reasonable.
yeah, and I think it's important to lay out this point as well, because we already like calculated on our side if we go to the court and we might lose, but if we win, we only will only cost us about 200K.
Yeah.
So if it's like if the total of the options that we have, installing water scrubber, dealing with the public relations, and like all the liability stuff in terms of like lawsuits, like far exceeds this amount, then
Yeah.
it might as well like we go to the court.
So you say it's 200K, right?
If we decide
we
to
win.
not inscribe,
No, if we
decide-
don't go to the court.
But I mean,
Are you
your
talking
like
about
your bottom line of the cost cannot exceeding 200K. Is that correct?
No, I mean we're willing to pay a little bit more to make sure that we're compliant because
Yeah.
we don't want like the 200K is the alternative cost of us not installing any water scrubber. That's what we calculate as our estimate from legal liability and whatnot. That's going to tarnish our reputation. It's going to sort of undercut your ability to implement your authority as a DEC, and it's not good for everybody. So we're willing to pay more for the intangible things such as reputation and whatnot. That's hard to translate into dollars.
So I think like the TechnoClean, how it could really be beneficial for the both of us is that since you'll be using this technology and it's like 99.9% effectiveness there. So with respect to that, if we are sort of giving you this guarantee, you had this doubts in your mind whether or not it would be effective or not, but we sort of give you this guarantee that if it fails, we'll be reimbursing you for the second one.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but still, I mean, reimbursing for, you mean for another TechnoClean or a Rotoblue?
for
TechnoClean.
Okay. How about we come back to this point? So what I understand, so from our point of view, we want what we're asking for is the TechnoClean at a cost of as a subsidized cost of $250,000 for us, which would be a $200,000 subsidy on your part. And you're offering us to pay for it full price, but you'll guarantee its functionality.
Yeah.
That's where we stand right now.
Yeah.
what subsidy? What part about the subsidy did you just mention?
I'm saying that
From our
Yeah.
part, we
So
want
they
to-
want to like 200K for
You
as
want
a
200
subsidy for versus
so that the
for us
cost
to
of the
guarantee.
TechnoClean becomes comparable to the cost of the Rotoblue, which has proven reliability.
So I think with respect to the subsidy, as I mentioned, that's something that's not an option for us, especially because if we
Right.
do it for you, we'll have to do it for everybody else.
Right.
So like
I mean, I
Besides-
think that argument is going to be made anything we go with
No,
down
not
this
really.
road, right?
Yeah, but still, I mean, like, we can still, like, just got off with the Rotoblue, right?
Yeah.
From okay.
Let's
you
come
guys
back
want-
to.
Yeah.
Well, we can come back to this point. I think we should sit down. So we have an idea of where you guys stand
Yeah.
and where we stand,
Mhm.
and maybe with the other things, we'll be able to find a way that we can sort of reach a negotiation.
But I mean, just before we move on with that, but do you think you can accept a smaller amount of subsidy? Because for us,
course.
if we guarantee if we guarantee the whole thing, so like I think there's just like we are taking the liabilities. So
Right.
No,
from
no,
your
no,
guys, you
You're
have
taking
no
the
risk.
liability, but not the cost.
Well, we do like if it does not works, we have to pay for the whole thing, right?
Right.
No, but you-
So that's a 20% chance, right? So the
I mean,
expected value of that
It's just like
is
50K.
about close to 50K.
Yeah.
like
that's
in
very
terms
small.
of subsidies, that
Right.
might be a big stretch for us. But
Okay.
instead, what we could do is like we were looking at other ways in which we could help you out if it's
Okay.
not really, especially in this particular aspect.
Sure.
So maybe it may be more, since you're very concerned about your image and there have been various threats and like actually not proven stuff being said against you
Okay.
in the public, we could actually help you with maybe public relations. Essentially, in the past, what we have done is we have spent some amount for looking at probably people who are being not succumbing to not really going ahead with the regulations. We have sort
Right.
of put them out, but actually we could use you as an exemplary example if you were to take your TechnoClean and we sort of put you in the good light. So that's maybe something that we could do, but when we do that, we'll not be able to provide you any guarantee or any subsidy per se, because then that's something
Right.
that you'll have to deal with. Because
Okay.
that sort of covers both of your bases in terms of looking
Right.
at.
So, I think from your interest perspective, you probably wanted to understanding whether having a public relations from your side will actually help you to saving a particular
Right.
amount of costs, and whether that cost actually
Right.
actually was actually smaller,
Right.
versus like you actually paying for this particular technology.
Okay. So from the point of compliance, I guess at most you're willing to guarantee the water scrubber, and we haven't even talked about a compliance incentive. But it seems like you're sort of from the water scrubber point of view, you don't want to subsidize any of it because other people will.
Exactly, and the same is the case with the compliance incentive. So these are the two that go line in line for us.
Okay.
These are like extremely substantially incremental costs
Yeah.
for us.
Okay.
But we might be able to help you with
Because-
respect to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, for the subsidy, like I'm saying, we are not willing to maybe do. We cannot do 200. That's just way too much.
Yeah,
But if you
sure.
want to have like smaller amount and with the guarantee, maybe. So we can negotiate with the size of that
Would you be able to subsidize
a small amount.
100,000 and guarantee it and warranty it?
No, that's too much.
Actually, our subsidy amount is very limited.
Yeah.
It was like somewhere around 40 to 50 that we were looking at
Yeah.
for maximum.
Okay.
So you said that you cannot give us subsidy for the water scrubber and also compliance incentive because it will be like cost you more in the future.
Yeah.
Because why again? Sorry.
Yep. Because like if we are giving it to you, another company that is to come and ask us the
Yeah,
same thing,
they will
like
have that same thing.
they'll expect the same treatment for them.
Okay.
Okay. So assuming that there's no kind of like such factor affecting your decision, you'll be able to give us 450K, right?
I mean that's not an option, but
No,
we can.
sorry, I mean 200K.
That's
So-
not really an option at the moment because all the numbers and everything that we have, the data in front of us, we
Right.
do expect that, and that's going to happen.
Okay. You're concerned that
How about-
the second you subsidize for us, other people are going to line up,
Yeah.
and you can't say yes to no one company and no to the
Exactly.
See, for
which
example,
is
like
reasonable.
yeah. So say like if we are going to subsidizing you $200, for
Mm.
us we need to also pay other people
Right.
another $200. So it's very costly for us as
Right.
options.
And the
But
fact that we're a pilot first mill to implement this doesn't influence that decision at all. You can't justify it by saying we are subsidizing this because it's a pilot project.
No, it does not work that way.
but we can come back to that.
But
if you
actually
want.
that's a good point, right?
Yeah, because I mean we're basically a trial, like
Yeah.
we're try before you buy it type thing.
So I think that also sort of puts you in a positive light as well,
Of
right?
course.
Because you're doing it
Of
for the
course.
first time, and
But
you
we-
are in the limelight.
I think the compliance issue is going to be a sticking point that maybe we can get to later because if we sort out some of the other things and we find a way for it to be
Yeah.
us to continue to operate profitably, then maybe we can sort of put those issues aside and not have to deal with them. So there's a couple of things that, and like we said in the beginning, that by buying a water scrubber, we are in a sense admitting to guilt. And
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
going to cast us negatively in sort of the light in terms of public relations and in terms of liability. And we would request your assistance in terms of trying to build a positive public image for us in terms of public relations. I think working together we can really push this new agenda, and then also sort of help us mitigate some of the risk involved with liability.
Yeah, so we could really help you with the public relations, like
Okay.
if like if you were taking technically on your own and bringing it forward, but
Right.
we would exemplify in the best of the manner for all the other clients, all the other people.
Right.
So I think that's definitely one thing that we can do for you that sort of helps both of us in that particular
So
aspect.
how much are you willing to help us on the public relations?
So that's going to be
I think, sorry, just before you go, on our point of view, for us to launch a public, like a successful, what we consider a successful public relations campaign, it's going to cost around $20,000. It's money that we can't afford, and we would forego otherwise. Like we would not go down this road.
so you'd rather not is what you mean?
No. I'm saying if we had to pay for it out of pocket, we would not be able to afford it. Our cash flows would not allow us to afford that public relation.
But how do you think this will benefits from the cost saving from your side?
Well, it will help us to like regain the positive image in the public and therefore help our business to grow
Yeah.
in terms of like top line, I would say.
So I think it could be a good way for you moving forward. But with respect to the money, I think we can do as much as 50,000 so that you can cover the rest of it. That's
For the public relation,
yeah.
So you're not budging on the subsidies for the water scrubber, and you're offering us 50K can do for liability insurance.
Like, what is it that you think that would be a
So,
good?
I mean, we're open to liability of up to $550,000.
500.
And
$550,000.
so,
500.
and I understand that's a lot, but we also have to give and take a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And for sure, like as you also mentioned, you have an insurance to cover all of that.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
we just get 550K
Yeah.
deductible, right?
So I think with respect to that, like you mentioned about public relations, but more than that, if we were to help you with anything, which could be maybe like, you know, if we were to give you a subsidy, it could not be more than, it can be around like $10,000.
So $10,000.
Yeah.
For water scrubber?
Yeah, because given that we have to
Now
do
forget the
for-
water scrubber. Like, let's you're talking pennies on $10,000 is a change on the liability assistance.
Like as I mentioned, especially with the subsidies, we have to do it for everybody. So like for us, the cost of financial.
Which means a no from your standpoint.
Well, depends on how you want to do that. We can either pay for the public relations or we can do some subsidy. But we prefer maybe we move towards paying for helping with the public relations. But I think in that particular case, you have to make those concessions on the.
So just let me stop you. You're asking us to make concessions, and so far all you've offered was a warranty on unproven scrubber and $50,000 in public relations. Like, that's insulting. That's an insulting offer. Like, we're trying to work together. There's, like I said, there's no proven evidence for this water scrubber to be working. It's going to cost us a minimum to go with a non-experimental one, $250,000. And again, it's not proven to work. You know, like I'm telling you, like, I'm trying to protect our company as much as possible, and I'm trying to protect our jobs as much as possible. I'm trying to protect the jobs of the community as much as possible. But if this company continues to bleed money, it's going to get axed.
I completely understand that.
It's
Like,
going to get asked as a cause of the DEC's implementation of stringent enforcements, which we will take to court and try to establish some sort of causality, because you can't shut us down without any proven evidence.
no, completely, I understand. Which is why we were initially also offering
So
you
let's talk. Let's pretend that didn't happen, and let's talk your insulting offer, and we can move forward from there, right? Like this. Let's talk as if we're trying to achieve some sort of
Okay.
plan and some sort of concessions together, not just us conceding to your requests, which again are unfounded.
We offered you the fact that, you know, we are providing you guarantee with respect to that, and on part of that, on top of that, we're providing the subsidy of 10,000. I don't know how that's super unfair for
No,
you.
but it's the fact that not willing to budge on compliance incentives, not willing to
So we
budge
will have to
on.
talk about it. Yeah.
Well, that's what you said a few minutes ago, no? When you talked
Well,
about, you
I
said
mean, it's
if
a-
whatever you have to pay for us, you have to pay another dollar to someone else.
Yeah,
So,
so
and not willing to budge on liability assistance. Basically, all you've offered was $50,000 for $50,000 for public relations and a water
We can't-
scrubber, like a warranty on a water scrubber, and pennies on it.
I mean, we can go with we can increase the public relations, but I mean, in that particular case, I think you should take decisions on the contract.
On what?
So we can increase the public relations if you but
So just so you know, the concessions that we've taken so far, we're paying an extra $200,000 for an experimental technology. That's the concession we've taken.
That's above the 250K of the work that you.
Yes,
I still
yes.
don't. I mean, like, sorry to cut you there, but I still don't get it. Like, why you have to go for the FSP itself.
We don't have to go, honestly, we don't
Yeah,
have to go
because,
Friday.
because you just require us to install the.
well, let me give you two reasons for that. First, because if you take the existing the water blue, you're emitting. You're not. Because if we go with the techno clean, we can make a public relations saying that hey.
Right, but with $50,000 in public relations budget, we might as well just take the
No, but
money,
I mean, I'm
right?
not-
Like,
I'm not-
what are we gonna do with that? Are we gonna like put a little like a cartoon on
As we say, like we can subscribe. We can also help you with this ventures with public relations. So we're not saying like we're gonna fix one particular price, but that's what I'm saying. Like if we're going higher on the public relations, we probably need to collaborate with us on the technical clean side.
So say we take no subsidy at all on the technical clean except for the grant. What are you able to offer us in terms of liability assistance, in terms of public relations, in terms of compliance and stuff? Now we're paying up to $200,000 for unproven technology. We're taking on risks associated with that technology.
So we sort of have a offer out there. What is it that you think that you need from us in like whatever it is that we're asking for? What do you want? What do you want to do about it? Because
Right.
as you you mentioned, like, you know, you would not rather not go with either of the two bubbles. As part of our regulation and our systems, you have to actually use the public relations act to sort of spread awareness.